We all know that what we say can have a powerful impact on others. But have we truly understood the power of our words? Words aren't just a tool for communication. They are the key that can unlock doors to uncharted territories in our lives, our work, and our relationships. So why don't we take control of what we say to create a positive difference? Think about the last time you said something, and immediately afterward, you regretted it. Did you let your emotions take over? Or maybe you didn't take enough time to think before speaking. The truth is, we haven't taught ourselves how to master our words. Words can build, but they can also destroy. That's why learning to control what we say doesn't just help us avoid unnecessary situations. It helps us become more intelligent, thoughtful communicators. But how do we do that? It's not just about staying silent when we're feeling strong emotions. It's a process of learning, self-awareness, and practicing in every moment. Think about the times you've been involved in a conversation, a meeting, or even just a casual chat with friends or family. Sometimes, we unconsciously say things that we can't take back right away, and that lack of control has caused many relationships to crack. Sometimes, just one careless comment can hurt someone, even when we didn't mean to. But what's more important is that, once you become aware of this power, you'll start to change the way you communicate. I can tell you that over the years, I've learned that controlling what I say not only helps me avoid unnecessary risks but also helps me build trust and respect from others. Can you imagine someone who always knows how to choose their words carefully, showing respect and empathy in every situation? They'll gain trust and admiration from everyone around them. More importantly, they'll feel confident expressing themselves without fearing they'll hurt anyone. I'm not perfect. I've made mistakes in the way I've spoken. But what matters is that I've come to realize that every word I say carries weight. And once I learned how to control my words, I not only improved my personal relationships but also advanced in my career and social life. Why am I talking about this? Because in every conversation, control isn't about silence. It's about being confident and proactive in choosing what you want to say. When you do that, you don't just control your words. You also take charge of the situation and steer the conversation. This will lead you into a new world where you lead the dialogue, and people will view you as someone wise, insightful, and understanding. In today's world, where everyone seems to be speaking, posting, and shouting to be heard, silence is often overlooked or dismissed as a weakness. But here's the thing. Silence is one of the most powerful tools you can possess. It's not about being mute or disconnected from the world around you. It's about knowing when to speak and when to hold back. It's about choosing to use silence as a shield, a protective barrier that prevents emotional outbursts and allows for thoughtful, measured responses. Think about the last heated argument you were part of. You might have said things you didn't mean, or maybe someone else did. In that moment, if you had just paused, if you had taken a breath and embraced silence, would the outcome have been different? I think it would. Silence isn't just about holding your tongue. It's about creating space for reflection. When you're silent, you're giving yourself time to process your emotions, assess the situation, and then respond with clarity instead of reacting impulsively. Imagine, for a moment, being able to step back in the midst of conflict, choosing to remain silent, and letting the situation settle before speaking. That silence allows you to regain control over your emotions, preventing you from saying something you might regret. It is in that pause, that brief moment of stillness, that you become empowered. You take control not just of the situation, but of yourself, and in doing so, you cultivate respect from others. When you speak with purpose, after choosing silence, people listen, not just because of what you say, but because of the power you display in holding back. But let's be real for a second. Silence is hard. It's a challenge, especially when our emotions run high. We're conditioned to react in moments of frustration, anger, or even excitement. The impulse is to speak, to vent, to get our point across. But what if I told you that silence could actually make your message more powerful? The ability to say nothing at the right moment can often speak volumes. It can create an atmosphere of mystery, respect, or authority, something that a loud, impulsive response can never achieve. There's a reason why some of the most respected leaders, thinkers, and influencers in history have been masters of silence. Think about it. People like Gandhi, MLK, or even modern-day figures like Oprah have mastered the art of saying just enough. They don't overwhelm with words. They let silence speak for them. It's not that they never speak. They speak with purpose. But they understand the power of silence in between their words. They know that silence doesn't mean weakness. It means strength, control, and self-awareness. Silence allows us to avoid unnecessary conflict. It can calm a situation before it escalates, preventing the emotional chaos that often follows a rushed or careless remark. And in a world that's constantly pushing us to react, silence becomes a tool for defying that urge. By practicing silence, we don't lose our voice, we enhance it. We give our words more weight, more value, and more impact. Every word we speak after a moment of silence carries intention, and that intention resonates deeply with those around us. In the end, silence is not just a tool for emotional control. It's a pathway to mastering our emotions, our responses, and ultimately, our lives. It's about taking control of our narrative and not allowing the noise of the world to dictate how we engage with it. It's a simple yet profound act of strength, and in a world where everyone is trying to make their voice heard, the real power lies in knowing when not to speak at all. Listening is often viewed as passive, but true listening is an art, and it holds far more power than most of us realize. When we actively listen, we create a space where connection, understanding, and trust can thrive. It's not just about hearing words. It's about absorbing the essence of what someone is communicating, both through their speech and their silence. It's a dynamic interaction that requires empathy, patience, and a willingness to be fully present. The real strength in listening lies in the ability to step outside our own thoughts and into the world of another person. When we listen, we not only hear their words but also observe their body language, their pauses, and their emotions, we begin to see beyond the surface, to understand deeper truths that aren't immediately obvious. This type of listening helps us connect with people in ways that surface-level conversation never could. It's about being so attuned to someone else's world that we are not only aware of what they're saying but also of what they might be leaving unsaid. This brings us to the power of silence. Silence doesn't always mean inaction. Sometimes, it's a deliberate choice that allows us to process, reflect, and absorb the weight of what's being shared. Take, for example, Dave, the quiet ride-share driver from Manhattan. Dave didn't speak much during his 40-minute ride with a passenger. But his silence was far from passive. By turning off the radio and offering a bottle of water, he communicated volumes. He created a calm, undistracted environment, making his passenger feel seen and valued. Dave's silence said, "I'm here, I'm present, and I understand." Sometimes, that's all someone needs to feel heard. Dave didn't need to speak or offer advice to make an impact. His silence was the perfect response to what was needed in that moment. It was an invitation for the passenger to relax, reflect, and enjoy a moment of peace. Silence, in this context, was the ultimate act of empathy. It demonstrated that listening doesn't always require words. Sometimes, the most profound listening happens when we are silent, when we simply show that we're there. In our own lives, we can apply this power of silence by learning to listen more effectively. The next time you're in a conversation, challenge yourself to listen 70% of the time. Instead of speaking, let the other person fully express themselves without immediately jumping in with your own opinions or responses. Ask questions to dive deeper into their thoughts, and give them the space to elaborate. By doing so, you'll foster a connection built on understanding rather than on surface-level exchanges. It's through active listening that we can build stronger, more meaningful relationships. People who truly listen are the ones others turn to when they need advice, comfort, or support. It's not about being the loudest voice in the room. It's about being the most attentive. By embracing silence and listening actively, we can create a space where others feel safe to share, knowing they'll be heard, not just in their words, but in the unspoken moments between them. This is where true connection begins, and where our ability to make an impact grows exponentially. So, the next time you're in a conversation, think about the power you hold not just in your words, but in your silence. Listen more than you speak, and watch how your relationships deepen, your understanding expands, and your influence grows, because true strength lies not in how much we say, but in how much we're willing to hear. Emotions can be powerful, but when unchecked, they can also be dangerous. We've all been there. A moment of anger or frustration, and in the heat of it, we blurt out words that we can't take back. In a split second, those words, like arrows, fly and hit their mark, causing damage that could take weeks, months, or even years to repair. Whether it's in a relationship, at work, or in a public setting, a loss of control can shatter something precious and sometimes irreparably so. Emotions, when not handled with care, can drive us to say things we regret for a lifetime. One of the most valuable lessons I've learned, and perhaps one of the most difficult to master, is the idea of not letting emotions control your words. Stoicism, an ancient philosophy that values reason and self-control, teaches us that it's not about suppressing emotions but about knowing when to hold back and when to speak. It teaches us to recognize the power of silence and the importance of responding thoughtfully, rather than reacting impulsively, and this is something that can make all the difference in preserving our relationships and achieving long-term success. Take, for instance, the story of John, a manager who prided himself on being calm and collected in even the most stressful situations. But one day, during a tense meeting, he let his frustration boil over. His boss made a comment he didn't agree with, and before he knew it, John lashed out, saying things he couldn't retract. The damage was done. John was removed from his managerial role. In that one moment, his emotional outburst cost him not only his job but also his reputation. This wasn't just a professional setback, it was a personal one. John's inability to control his emotions had altered the course of his career. What John's story illustrates is the immense importance of emotional control. A brief loss of composure can derail everything you've worked for. Emotional control is not about being robotic or unfeeling. It's about recognizing when emotions need to be acknowledged but not acted upon. It's about creating space between feeling and response, allowing you to respond thoughtfully instead of impulsively. If we fail to control our emotions, we risk losing not just our relationships but also our ability to achieve our long-term goals. One of the most effective ways to control emotions is to label them precisely. When you're upset, instead of simply saying, "I'm angry," try to articulate what's really going on. Say, "I feel disrespected," or "I feel misunderstood." This simple shift in language can help you process your emotions more effectively and, in turn, respond in a more measured way. By putting a label on our emotions, we can separate ourselves from them, allowing us to think more clearly and act with intention. Another technique I've found incredibly helpful is writing down my feelings before responding. Especially when I'm angry, Abraham Lincoln, known for his wisdom and restraint, had a practice of writing angry letters when he was upset but never sending them. This act of writing allowed him to express his anger without acting on it, helping him maintain composure. I've applied this principle myself, and I can tell you, it works. By writing it down, you get the emotion out of your system without risking the fallout of impulsive actions. The ability to control your emotions is one of the most important skills you can develop. It's not easy, but it is essential. If you learn to manage your emotions and respond thoughtfully, you'll find that your relationships deepen, your reputation strengthens, and your success becomes more sustainable. Emotional control doesn't mean you should suppress your feelings. It means you should learn how to use them as tools, not weapons, and when you do, you'll not only avoid the traps that emotions can set for you, but you'll also empower yourself to create the life and relationships you truly desire. There's an undeniable strength in knowing when to speak and when to remain silent. In a world that encourages constant noise, the person who can hold back and choose their moment wisely is often seen as the one with true power. Silence isn't weakness, it's a strategic choice. It's an act of self-control, a demonstration that you don't need to prove anything to anyone. In that pause, you convey confidence. You show that you are in control, not just of the situation, but of yourself. The ability to hold back when everyone else is talking or reacting can be one of the most powerful tools at your disposal. It's like holding a secret weapon, something that others can't quite grasp but feel the weight of. When you speak, people listen more attentively, not because you've spoken more, but because your words come with the power of having waited for the right moment. Silence, used strategically, speaks volumes in ways words sometimes cannot. Let me tell you about David, a designer I worked with. David was a quiet, methodical person, known for his attention to detail and unique approach to design. One day, during a collaborative project, a colleague took credit for David's idea. The natural instinct in such a situation is to speak out, to defend yourself, to expose the theft. But David didn't react. He stayed silent, choosing to focus on his own work. People noticed this. They saw him quietly moving forward, never losing his composure. When it came time for the project's execution, it was David's insight and attention to detail that made the design come alive. His colleague, who had taken credit for the idea, faltered when it came to implementation. David's silence, in this case, didn't diminish him, it amplified his influence. The core of the idea had always been in his mind, and it was his silent perseverance that ultimately allowed him to shine. When the work was on display, people turned to him for the details, the explanations, the depth that only he could provide. The colleague who had stolen the idea was left scrambling, unable to execute with the same level of understanding or depth. This story highlights something profound about silence. When used correctly, silence becomes a tool of influence. It creates a space where your presence is felt, where the power of your thoughts and ideas can grow without interference. It's not about letting others take credit for your work. It's about knowing that your value isn't diminished by silence. Silence doesn't steal your power, it amplifies it. The most impactful people in the world are those who understand the power of silence. Think of the greatest leaders, the most respected thinkers. They know when to speak in. Just as importantly, when to hold back. They don't need to fill every moment with their voice. They understand that their silence will create anticipation. And when they finally speak, their words will carry weight. Silence enhances the power of what's said next. It gives your words space to land, to resonate, to be heard with greater clarity. In our everyday lives, mastering the art of silence can create an aura of influence. When you choose silence over unnecessary reaction, when you allow others to speak while you listen, you show a level of control and confidence that others will naturally respect. You allow yourself to be the calm in the storm, the steady presence amidst chaos. It's in these moments that your true power emerges, not in the noise you make, but in the silence you hold. There's a certain wisdom in speaking less. It's not about saying nothing, but about saying just enough. The people who have a deep impact on the world around them aren't the ones who constantly speak. They are the ones who know how to choose their words carefully. To speak at the right moment. It's not about filling the air with noise. It's about making your words count. The most profound conversations are often the ones where the speaker says little but leaves a lasting impression. Ask yourself this simple question before you speak. Are my words necessary? If the answer is no, then silence can often be your best response. Sometimes, the best thing you can say is nothing at all. People who speak without thinking often find themselves in situations where they have to backpedal, explain, or defend their words. But when you take the time to think before you speak, you can avoid all of that. Your words carry more weight when they are measured, purposeful, and necessary. Take the story of Thomas, a sharp and ambitious guy who worked in finance. Thomas was known for his quick thinking and ability to come up with solutions on the spot. But there was one project he lost due to his impulsive reactions. He was quick to speak, quick to share his opinion, and quick to make decisions. But in doing so, he didn't always consider the timing or the impact of his words. In a particularly tense meeting, Thomas, eager to prove his point, spoke out of turn. His words, although correct, came at the wrong moment, and the result was a loss of a significant project. It wasn't just about being right. It was about knowing when to hold back and when to speak. Thomas realized something crucial in that moment. Being right at the wrong time can cost you, and sometimes, the most effective strategy is to remain silent, to let things unfold before jumping in. He started practicing the art of pausing before speaking, giving himself time to reflect on the situation, and allowing space for others to speak first. This change in behavior earned him respect from his colleagues, and his silence became a powerful signal of depth. People began to see him as thoughtful, strategic, and someone who didn't rush into things. His words, when he chose to speak, had more impact, and he no longer found himself defending or regretting his reactions. The benefits of speaking less are profound. When you learn to pause, to think before responding, you avoid unnecessary conflict. Silence can be a shield, protecting you from saying something that could escalate a situation or damage a relationship. But more than that, silence gives you power. It's a sign of self-control, of confidence. When you speak less, your words become more valuable. You no longer waste energy on trivial conversations. Instead, you save your words for moments that matter. In a world where everyone is trying to be heard, the real power lies in knowing when to speak and when to stay silent. The people who make the greatest impact are often the ones who say the least. But when they do speak, their words carry authority and wisdom. By choosing your words wisely and thinking before you speak, you not only avoid unnecessary drama but also position yourself as a person of insight, control, and strength. Silence doesn't mean weakness. It means you understand the value of your voice and you use it strategically. So, next time you're about to speak, Ask yourself, do I really need to say this? If not, let silence do the work for you. There's something incredibly powerful about keeping your goals to yourself, about choosing to protect your plans and not share them with the world too soon. The temptation to talk about what you're going to do can be overwhelming, especially when you're excited or passionate about your ideas. But here's the thing. Sharing your plans can often rob you of the very energy you need to execute them. Talking about your goals gives you a sense of progress without actually taking any action. You get the validation, the acknowledgement, and the excitement of telling people what you're going to do. But in reality, you're just setting yourself up for complacency. The truth is, silence about your goals can protect your energy and keep you focused on the one thing that truly matters: action. When you keep your plans to yourself, you aren't distracted by the need for external validation. You're not concerned with how others will respond, what they'll think, or whether they'll approve of your ideas. Instead, you're free to focus on the work, to make real progress without all the noise. Let's take Jake, a software developer who learned this lesson the hard way. Jake had an incredible idea for an app, something that could change the way people interacted with technology. He was enthusiastic, and he shared the idea with everyone: friends, family, colleagues. At first, the feedback was encouraging, and he felt energized by the support and excitement of others. But as time went on, something strange happened. The more he talked about his idea, the less he actually did. Talking about the app, discussing the features, and getting excited about how it could change the world became a substitute for the real work. Jake realized that he had been fooling himself. By sharing too much, he had already experienced the rush of excitement and recognition, and that false sense of progress diminished his drive to actually build the app. One day, Jake made a decision. He stopped talking about his app. He stopped sharing the idea with anyone. And instead, he focused solely on the work. He poured his energy into the coding, the design, and the development, without telling anyone what he was doing. And it worked. Jake launched the app in complete silence, without any grand announcements, and the results spoke for themselves. People loved it, and it gained traction quickly, far more effectively than it would have if he had spent all that time talking about it instead of doing it. The lesson here is simple but powerful. When you protect your plans, you protect your energy. You don't dilute your motivation by seeking approval from others. You don't waste time on discussions that don't lead to results. Instead, you preserve your focus and drive. And when you do take action, the impact is far greater. There's no need to broadcast your intentions. Let your actions speak louder than your words ever could. Keeping your goals to yourself isn't about hiding them or being secretive. It's about giving them the space to grow and develop without the distractions of other people's opinions. When you start taking action, the results will naturally follow, and they will speak for themselves. There's no need to announce every step along the way. The world will notice when your work is finished, and the success will be even sweeter because it came from quiet, focused execution rather than empty talk. So, guard your plans, protect your energy, Let your actions be the loudest message you send. In life, not everyone deserves access to your most personal thoughts and plans. The people you trust with your deepest aspirations, fears, and dreams hold a powerful position in your life. But here's the harsh reality. Sharing too much with the wrong people can have unintended and often devastating consequences. This is where the art of silence comes in. It's not just about keeping secrets, it's about choosing who you confide in, who you allow to hear your inner thoughts. Silence, in this sense, becomes a protective shield, a way to guard your personal integrity and safeguard your plans from those who might not have your best interests at heart. Consider Mark's story. Mark was a passionate personal trainer, full of ambition and ideas for growing his business. He shared his plans for opening a new training center with someone he considered a close friend, someone he thought he could trust. But instead of supporting him, this so-called friend used the information to open a gym directly next door, targeting Mark's clients. In that moment, Mark realized a painful truth. Trust is a precious commodity, and when it's misused, it can cost you everything. Mark's experience underscores the importance of discretion. It's crucial to be selective about who you confide in. Not everyone who calls themselves your friend has the capacity to handle your vulnerabilities with care. Trust should be given sparingly, and you should be cautious about sharing your plans with those who might not understand or respect your vision. Silence can be a strategic tool in protecting yourself. By withholding certain information, you are not being secretive for the sake of being secretive. You are being mindful of who you let into your inner circle. In doing so, you protect your plans from being misinterpreted, misused, or sabotaged by those who may not have your best interests at heart. It's easy to get caught up in the excitement of sharing your ideas with others. But not every person is deserving of that kind of access. This doesn't mean you have to shut yourself off entirely, but it does mean being discerning. In the age of oversharing, where everyone seems to have an opinion on everything, learning when to remain silent about your goals is an act of self-preservation. It allows you to focus on execution, not on defending or explaining your ideas to others who may not understand them. So, how do you ensure you're choosing the right confidants? Start by observing how people handle information. How do they treat others' secrets? Are they trustworthy in their actions, or do they talk behind others' backs? Trust is built over time, and you can't rush it. Take your time to understand who truly supports you, not just when it's convenient, but when you're vulnerable. Silence is an essential part of that process. It protects you from revealing too much to the wrong person, and it gives you the space to assess who truly deserves to be part of your inner circle. Ultimately, words are powerful, and when you choose your confidants wisely, you ensure that the right people have access to your most valuable thoughts and plans. Trusting the wrong person can lead to betrayal, but silence can shield you from that harm. It allows you to protect your peace, your relationships, and your future. In choosing silence over reckless sharing, you take control of your narrative and your success. Now, think about this. Who do you trust with your ideas and plans? Are they the right people? Are they supporting you or waiting for an opportunity to take what's yours? Start practicing discretion in who you confide in, and you'll find that your journey will be more protected, focused, and ultimately, more successful. Choose your confidence wisely, and protect your peace, because when you do, you'll be setting yourself up for a future built on trust, integrity, and self-mastery.